Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Welcome to February. Oh my gosh, I hope you stayed warm in all this weather we've been having this week. My name is Lynn Vartan. I'm the director of A.P.E.X events and also teach in the music department. And I am thrilled for today. Those of you who may remember last year's Festival of Excellence, our fantastic speaker, Bertice Berry, said to me, "You have to have KP come to SUU." And I said, okay, let's work on it. So I did my research, and all the way from Germany, she has come and been in residence with us for a couple days. And what a blast we have been having. So she's been called a maverick, a forerunner, a true delight to listen to, and someone to get motivated to take action from. Her nickname is KP, but we have been really just enjoying getting to know her here. She's originally born in Munich, Germany, and talks about adaptability, and she's worked with top politicians, Olympic athletes, and has been a keynote speaker in over 25 countries, multiple TED Talks, worked in the political arena, and then she's going to tell you her very special and personal story about her time in Africa working with the elephants. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome our new friend, Kerstin Plehwe.
Oh my God. Wow. Oh my God. When I came here, first of all, it was promised that there will be no snow in Utah because I love traveling the world, especially in German winter time. And, well, there is snow, but there is the Harry Potter room. I heard you call him that. And I'm a fan of Harry Potter, but not as much of a fan as many, many Europeans, especially my colleagues from the UK. And I don't know if you know that the author of Harry Potter, Joan Rowling, when she wrote the book, she was depending on food stamps, and she was really poor, but she believed in the book that nobody wanted. And as you all know, this book became a world seller. So what does that tell us? It tells us, anything is possible. And that is one of my mottos. So I'm thrilled to be here today, share some of my experiences, which might seem a bit odd because I come from a marketing and advisory background. I'm an entrepreneur since 30 years now in Europe. I've built several companies. My last one was in the political arena. I did presidential campaigns and worked with great people and thought, after some time and you get your gray hair and you make all your experiences, I thought, well, you probably have learned a lot and what can still come. And then Africa came to me, and I understood that the greatest teachers for me are not other humans. They have 4 legs, and they're animals like elephants. So I want to take you on a little journey to Africa. And I lived as a kid in South Africa. Oh, I have to turn this on. Lynn Extra told me. As a kid, I have lived in South Africa with my parents for a couple of years, and I loved it. I loved it. And for many people, who has been in Africa? Can you just show your hand? Anybody from you? Oh, two, okay. 3, okay. Well, what many people, the others should really go, maybe after this talk, check in. What really many people think when they hear Africa is either they think of the famous line of the movie, Out of Africa with Meryl Streep, Once I Had a Farm in the Marengo Hills, or they think of sounds of Africa. A sound like this one. Did you recognize it? You're not a ranger yet, but you will be in 45 minutes. This was a black-spotted hyena. And this you all probably know from Mowgli, from the Jungle Book. Those are elephants. But from me, my sounds of Africa were very different. This is a little technical test, if this works with a mic, because I didn't discuss that with the technicians in the back. For me, Africa sounded like this when I was a kid. Let's see if this works. Technical people hate it when speakers do that. All of a sudden, they pull out something that nobody has tested. Nobody knows about it. But let's see. Oh. And this is exactly what happens when it doesn't do anything. Well, I'll show you later. I'm sure it's going to work at some point. It did work this morning. What I wanted to show you is a sound of a beautiful bird named the gray hornbill. And that was a bird that had accompanied me from a business person to becoming a ranger in Africa. If you want to become a ranger in Africa as a normal European and as a normal from wherever you are, you have to know all the animals in Africa. You have even be able to explain them. It does other sounds, it just doesn't do the bird sound. That's fine. So you have to know approximately 150 birds just from the sound of their voice without seeing them. So me being a European, I knew exactly one bird. That was the pigeon. Well, but you don't think about those details when you're an entrepreneur and you just want to fulfill a childhood dream, which was to become a ranger in Africa. But you know, life, at least from my point of view, sometimes, and I love speaking to students, I actually teach in many countries in Europe, students, and I always tell them things might seem complicated. You know, you have to stretch to get what you want, you know, all the happiness you want, the great relationships, the great marks, all the money. You have to stretch, you have to grow, you have to really take action. And sometimes things seem to be really complicated for my students. And what I've learned in Africa is actually life is not that complicated. Not in Africa, it's actually really simple. It's really simple, and there's just one rule that really applies to 24 hours of every single day. And this is the rule of survival. You have 24 hours, you eat, you sleep, you need to eat, otherwise you die, and you mate because you want to have a next generation. This is it, a rule of life and death. Now, when I came to Africa, you know, from my corner office in Berlin, Germany, into this Jeep there, I all of a sudden understood that my life has changed dramatically by this experience. And let me show you a little bit of my life. I've worked with politicians, it was said, but more importantly, as my TV work and the elections was that I somehow thought I had figured it out. You know, life is cool, and you go to places, you work with great people, you know, everything is exciting, and you know so much. And all of a sudden, when exactly in the point when you think you figured it out, somebody asks you a question, a very personal question, and the adventure begins. And I'm going to tell you about that question. That question pulled me away from my life like within seconds. I came actually back from the US. This is, I think that is the Obama election. And during that time, I wrote a book on female leadership. So I interviewed Nobel Prize winners and scientists and entrepreneurs and really great women all around the world. And one of those women, she asked me a question in Ireland. Caroline Casey, she's a TED speaker too. She said, "Please tell me, Kerstin, I want to ask you a question." Is my mic doing crazy things? Should I take the hand mic? Can you hear me in the back? Okay, the middle can hear me. Can I see a hand in the back? Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. Good, all right, don't move. So Caroline asked me a question, and the question was, what is your biggest childhood dream? She wanted to know. And I was 41 at that point in time, and I had no clue. I mean, like, no clue. I knew I had lived in Africa and I had lived in other places of the world, but I had no clue. But I promised her I would find out. And then she said something really crazy. That's probably that makes her a TED speaker, just like me being really crazy about and passionate about some things. She said, "Promise me one thing, KP. If you find out what it was, your childhood dream, and it brings a smile onto your face, then do it." And I was like, all right, you know, I don't know, have you ever met Germans? Yes. So you know, if we give a word, we really stick to that. That's the only way how we can build those cars. You know, we stick to the detail of, oh my God, we did this. So I felt obliged to follow my word, and it brought me to this little tent here because I remembered my dream as a child to become a ranger in South Africa's Kruger Park. Well, Ranger experiences and trainings can be booked through the internet, and they do take credit cards. So I booked this on my way back from Dublin as soon as I remembered. Crazy people do crazy things, and that's good. I was so happy that I did that, because at that moment in time, I did not think about any consequences, which is good. Sometimes we be much faster. We have to act faster than we think. We just have to do, well, we get to that. So as a ranger, you learn that detail matters. And you don't only learn that as a ranger, you also learn it once you're in your job, in customer experience, for example, right? The detail of the customer experience brings you towards excellence, right? The detail of your work with your teachers brings you where you're going to be. And here's a detail in the picture. I'm very interested because this picture has traveled the world. If you figure out a detail in there that is an animal, I know we just have only 45 minutes. Anybody detect an animal? I'll give you a little hint. You see this green and yellow? And I've been kidding you, it's not a real animal. It is a stuffed animal that travels the world with me since many, many years. His name is Fritz. I call him the travel frog. He has been from Amsterdam to India to Pakistan to Africa, and he was the only guy who spent the night with me for 3 months in that little tent you see in the back. Because as I found out when I came to Africa, is I was the only woman in an all-male ranger group. So that meant I had this tent for myself. I didn't have to share. And so Fritz and I, here he is, were right there. So when you come to Africa, and I'm probably the few that have raised their hand know that rule. The first thing, if you get out of the Jeep in the camp, they will tell you is, whatever you do out there, don't run. Right? Because there are no fences. There's no glass that keeps you away from the lion or the elephant or the attacking cheetah. There's nothing like that. And you can't outrun them. I mean, humans can't outrun them. We might be able to not a cheetah for sure not, but you might be able to outrun a lion, but not on the first distance. So whatever you do, don't run. And you know, there's this, when I was still in the corporate world, before I sold my business, there was this really bad joke about consultants. 2 consultants go into the jungle and both have a backpack. And then a lion is in front of them. And you see from the lion, from the body stature, that it's about to attack. And the consultant takes down his backpack and starts to take out sneakers and put them on his feet. And the other guy says, "Are you kidding me? You think you're going to outrun a lion?" And he said, "Nah. I'm going to just outrun you. That's enough." And isn't that the market is today? We just have to be this little bit faster than the competitor, right? Out there in the business world, this little bit better than another one to get a better mark. Well, I came from this world. If you do TV work, you're sort of on air and ready for fast speed news, like 24 hours nearly. Actually, you are ready for 24 hours because any news could come around the corner anytime, right? So I was used to speed. And then there's this ranger telling me, here, it's not about speed. It's about not running. My first lesson that brought me way out of my comfort zone, because, you know, we all have our comfort zones, right? This is the area where we feel safe. Our home, our job, our family, our country, whatever. But I'm here to tell you today that the biggest learning and the path to excellence takes you out of this comfort zone. You need to leave it to make experience that you didn't think you could have, to detect talents that you didn't think are inside of you. And I've learned some, and I'll show you in a minute. For example, this talent, which isn't really grand, but it had a big learning for me. When we drove through this dry riverbed, 6 guys and me, the only woman, we had a flat tire. And the guys in my Jeep were like, I was the driver, they were like, "I bet you can't fix a tire." And I had never, ever in my whole life fixed a tire, I have to admit. Ashamed. But I did something that felt really crazy after I had said it. I said, step aside, guys. And I got out of that Jeep, and I got that rusty thing, having no clue what to do, where to put the screws and that. And guess what? After 10 minutes, this tire was on that Jeep. And my guys, I said, get back in. We want to continue our safari. They were just like, whoa, that was pretty cool. But that was not why I did that and why I'm telling you that story. I'm telling it to you because especially the women, especially the young women, we just need to say, step aside for 1 second. Let me do this. I got this. And the results will surprise you. They will surprise you, just like my tire did surprise me. Of course I didn't tell the guys I have never changed a tire. Of course not. But it was on the Jeep, and it even held to the end of my journey as a ranger. And now I want to take you on a journey from what I really believe in, and that is we can learn from any person and from any animal in the world. Right? So I call this lion leadership, and I put it together in 7 lessons for you that I hope are helpful for your own journey in life, because I'm sure it's going to hold many adventures. Who loves cats? Who owns a cat at home? All right, some cat lovers, okay. Who loves the big cats? Oh yes, the cheetahs, the leopards, the lions. Well, this is for all of you and also for the non-cat lovers, because it's just really amazing what lions can teach us. And the first thing we didn't trace lions, but we traced them, because lions and big cats are my favorite animals. So every morning when I crawled out of my tent, and you won't believe it, but winter in Africa at nighttime is really cold. I mean, like really cold. Not as Utah, but cold. So it is cold. And every morning we crawled out of the tent and we looked for traces for our lions. And what I've learned from the pride, they move around in prides, and what I've learned from them is that it's just so important to have your priorities right every single day of your life, to know what you do first, second, and third. What is the most important thing to you? And I know it sounds so simple, but in the end of the day, I meet people in trainings and coachings, and after my speeches that say, oh my God, that was such an important clue for me, because I have to rethink my priority and then check my daily routine if I have any space for my priority. So let's just say your priority is love or respect or freedom. But you work and talk and surrounded by people that don't give you that feeling of your top priority. How will you feel? How good will the result of your work will be? How happy will you be in your life? You won't. And lions, they have their priorities right straight, down a pat. They have 3 priorities. Food, sleep, sex. That's it. That's it. Lions spend 80% of the day sleeping, 20% hunting and playing. And the men are so smart, they let the women do the work. Even the bigger preys are chased by a team of women, usually 4 lionesses. They do the work, and then, unfortunately still, in the lion world, when the zebra is taken down, they do step aside, and the male eats first. That might change someday. I doubt it in the world of animals. But to know your priorities and combine them and check that, do cross-checks with your values, I found was just so important. And I keep doing that now on a regular basis. The other thing, what I've learned from lion is to understand the power of teamwork. As I said, lions live in prides, and it's very clear who does what, right? And not every single lioness does the same thing every day. Same thing with the lions, with the males. They build alliances, for example, to protect their territories. They don't do it on their own. They can't, because the territories of lions are wide. They need alliances. And the women, they can't do the attack onto the zebra or the warthog or whatever, or the giraffe baby by themselves. They need the team. And when they are out chasing, an older lioness will take care of the smaller ones. So you might think this is far away from our human world. It is not. Every successful person, every Olympic athlete, every corporate leader I have worked with, I look at them and they seem so bold and so strong. I say, who's in your team? And the team includes, the partner, the family, the friends. So if your team is not giving you power, we're talking about excellence here, the power to survive, the power to thrive, you have the wrong team. You can never survive until long term in the wild. So in this I said about the lions already. They spend 80% of the day sleeping, usually under trees so that you can't see them. If you be a wannabe ranger, you have to really be very careful when you move around in the grass. Thank God my sense of smell is very developed. I had no clue about that before I went to Africa. And I could smell lions. I didn't know about that because they stink terribly. They stink. I could even smell their urine when they were 2 hours, had peed on the grass 2 hours ago, and I could even make a difference after some time it was fresh or not, which helped me because my visual abilities of tracing the detail of the grass that was put down is not so good. Thank God I could smell. But those guys, as I said, they get the energy out of the right amount of rest. And so now I'm asking you, are we all getting the right amount of rest? Millions of people in America and in Germany, they say they sleep bad. They don't get enough sleep. They don't feel strong and healthy. And my answer is because we don't rest. Even when we lay down on the sofa, we turn on the TV. We check Facebook. We do emails. We think all the time about something. I tell my students, sit down and watch the grass grow. I just discussed that with Lynn. Sit down and watch the grass grow. Don't think, just be, relax. This is a success factor I truly, truly believe in. And that goes hand in hand with, I know it's a big trend thing now in Europe, and I've also seen books here in the US on mindfulness. But what does it really mean? To me, in Africa, as a wannabe ranger, it meant to be fully present in the moment. To really be present with all your senses, and not just standing there, with your whatever photo or camera and just waiting for the lion or whatever, or the cheetah to appear, but be present with all your senses. Smell, taste, ears, eyes, everything. Because this is the only way how this little thing here will survive. Just a minute later, this guy was right there. But she had heard the grass move. She had realized that the wind had changed and that she couldn't smell the lion. So her ears, if you see those little ones, go back, they turn all the time, just like from an elephant. So present in the moment. Is that important in business and in school? Yes, it is. Absolutely. Because those little signals of acceptance, of respect, of clues, what the other person really means, although he doesn't say it. We see them if we're present. We don't see them if we think about our shopping list in the afternoon or about how many friends we just lost on Facebook. We see that if we're present. With all our senses, this is so powerful. There is not one single Olympic athlete I've worked with that doesn't know the power and use the power of its senses for its everyday. And this is what we learned from lions, to use those senses. And we don't have just one sense, we have 5. Now, interesting enough, science has shown that every single person has a dominant sense that it uses to check out situations. Every single one of you. Some are more visual, some are more auditive, some need to be touched and feel something, some have the smell. So my question to you is, do you know your most dominant set? Often we don't, but if I would talk to you, and I hope we have the chance to talk a little bit after my talk here, I will hear your sense, your main sense pattern in the way how you speak. For example, a person who is mainly visual, he will speak, if I need to, hey Fritz, sorry. He will say something when I ask him about a holiday experience on the beach, he will say something like, oh my God, I loved the blueness of the water. I could just see me going into that water, right? The sky was just so bright. What pattern is that? That's a visual pattern, right? So I keep teaching my politicians back in Europe, that they have to understand to speak in different patterns. Because it could also be an auditive pattern, right? The noise of the waves, right? The noise of laughter, etc., etc. And none of the senses is better or worse. It just shows that there is a variety. And if you want to excel in whatever you do, it's great, first of all, to know your own sense, the main sense, and then use the other senses to detect patterns in others. And why do you want to do that? Because you want to emotionally attach when you speak to them, right? You want to make them do something. You want to make them buy something. You want to have friendship, trust, love. It all goes through emotional patterns that each of us has. So I was just talking to a friend about how I use that personally when I travel. My main sense is smell. So I use that to create more energy. For example, in the morning when I take the shower, I have a certain oil I use, as a shower foam. I use smell when I go to Starbucks. I use extra cinnamon for the coffee. You know what I mean? But this is because I know myself. This is why I often tell my students the answers that we look for are not outside. That's just knowledge. Well, all you get at this school is knowledge. But the combination of knowledge happens within each of you. To use that for your path, right? It's not my path. Not everybody goes to Africa, thank God not. Not everybody wants to become a politician, thank goodness. Not everybody becomes a corporate leader. No. But to excel in your path that makes you happy, that makes your life easy and joyful. So this is the auditive sense. What do you think that was? Bird? Uh-huh. I hear lion. Leopard. Yes. I would give you something if I could have a prize. It was a cheetah. And why is the difference so important if it's a lion or a cheetah? If you're on foot in the grass moving as a wannabe ranger. Yes, the cheetah is the fastest land animal. I mean, you won't outrun a lion, but you for sure won't outrun a cheetah. So you better know if a cheetah or a lion has called, right? You better have heard the little timbre when your boss talks about the raise, or your dad about the money you want. And you know what's great about it? I had the cat owners. Where are the dog owners? Oh my God, yes. Okay, I have a dachshund 7 months. I always had dogs. And my last dog was a yellow lab. I loved her, as you all love your dogs, I know. But when you talk to people about dogs or having animals, what do most of them say? They're honest. I see in their face what they want or what they did. Anton right now, my little dachshund, I can see when I enter the apartment what he broke or what he was hiding from me or whatever. And I'm sure you have all those stories too. And what I've learned from animals, again in Africa, even more intensely, is they show you what they want. But we as humans, we have developed a political correctness or whatever. We don't really often say what we want. And especially, again, for the women here, we don't really like saying no. That's the hardest word, the hardest word. But I'm telling you from my experience, it is just so important. It is so important to say no in a respectful way, maybe not in this way, but to stand your ground and make yourself clear, because people don't know what you want and what don't you want. And it's not, it's our education that often says, you have to be nice, please everybody, blah, blah. This does not create your excellence. So we have to learn to say no. Audrey Hepburn even said that. She said, learn to say no until your tongue bleeds. And she meant it. Learn to say no. And if you say yes, say it fast. Learn to say no. The lions show you that. And they also show you something else. They don't hide their character in something. I've seen so many different characters in our prides. We had 4 surrounding our camp or traveling around our camp. They're just themselves. They're just themselves. They don't try to be high, timid, or do something they are not just to get the guy, or no. They are themselves because they are a part of nature. But we have developed rituals to hide our character, right? Because we feel it's not safe. But I tell you one thing from my experience with politicians around the world. We need character and honesty. Because only like this, I truly believe that we get new leadership where people trust again, where people will fight the fake news, where people will stand up for something they think, oh my God, I can trust this guy. In Europe, people, they are not as critical about politicians as they are here. I know that throughout the campaigns, but they're very negative. If you would say, I want to become a politician, parents would say, can't you do something else? When I told my parents that I would work for a political party after 20 years in the corporate world, my mom said, but you studied something real. I mean, is there no better way to make money? They think it's a dirty business, but it shouldn't be. It's the business of creating a society, right? So it needs more authenticity, and I think it needs true you, whatever it is. Oops, I didn't do it. Hello? That's a test. If I can talk without a picture, but yes, I can. So I want to talk to you about the title of my book, and it's just in German. I'm so sorry, with National Geographic, but it was called The Wisdom of the Elephants. And people kept asking me, as soon as he shows up, it works, right? Did you see that? Oh my God. So it was called The Wisdom of the Elephants, and people and journalists kept asking me, well, what is the wisdom of the elephant? And I want to see with you if you can detect it, because when I was a junior ranger, I could not see it. Well, first of all, you see the cute calves and how protective they are, etc. But I have a video here for you, and we see the works. And please, detail matters. Look at the elephant here, which is the matriarch, the leader of the group, to the right, and see if you see something. And if you see something, how have we learned in the US? Say something, right? So what do you see? Don't you all watch the baby? Watch this here. Something in the behavior of this elephant strike you? What is that? Yes. Yeah, they put the sand over their head to dust off little ants and mosquitoes and that, yes. So they put the sand over them, yes. Okay, what else? Weed footwork, yes. The ears nearly continuously move with an elephant. It's like the built-in air condition system they have, because the blood vessels in the ear, they get cooled if they wave them. I meant something, it's a very minor detail, smaller than Fritz even. Covering their tracks, yes, she actually did that, but they also are looking for water right here, covering the tracks. I'll show it to you again, but I'll tell you what it is first. The wisdom of the elephants is, and what's the right English word? It's the, in Germany there is a game, you run, and then when somebody says stop, you have to freeze in the moment. You know what I mean? Freeze tag? Oh my God, I've learned something, thank you. Freeze tag. You have to, and you can't move, and then when they say go, you have to reach your goal. Okay, well the elephant, just the matriarch, she does that. Watch. It's just a split second, hold on. There, you see it? See? And the question is, what does she do in that moment? And a ranger asked me that question. What does she do? First of all, when he asked me that question, I was like, what? I didn't see anything special. I mean, she was, dusting her head and moving her ears and moving her feet and all that. I didn't see the split second of, the trunk being like this and not doing anything. But he showed me, and she does it every couple minutes. And the question is, why is she doing that? And the answer is just so fascinating. It's so fascinating. She does that for two reasons. One, to get a sense where the rest of her team and her family is, the whole group, and they could be kilometers away from her, kilometers. They can feel through their feet, through the senses, something that dolphins can have too, where their group is, where their herd is. And then they do a second thing. They feel how they feel, their focus, freeze tag, within themselves. To do what? To be in the most powerful state you can think of, to realize the whole surrounding, to realize if a part of a herd is sick, the gentleman in the red, if somebody in the back there has a problem moving in my speed, if our heart rate is higher than usual, okay? And if we all could do that, there would be no burnout, there would be no depression, all that. We wouldn't have that because we learn how to listen to ourselves and take care of our herd. But by doing that, you have to stop doing anything. You just have to stop and use your senses, and this is what elephants do. I call that the wisdom of the elephants. But you can learn more from them. Compassion. If you see elephant herds, how the older ones deal with the young ones, even if it's not their own young one, how they deal with elder animals. They don't put them in elderly homes and never visit them. They keep them in the herd and bring them food. They're highly responsible. And they depend on their leader, very trustful. If the leader, which has to move often weeks to get to a new water hole, if she leads them in the wrong direction, it's a female leader, they will all die. They will all die. Nobody will say, oh, I think it's this way. No. They trust, and it's a deep trust they establish every single day again with their herd. By playing, by touching, by trumpeting, by sounds. You realize what I'm saying? It's all the five senses again. That deepens trust by using the senses. And they're extremely loyal. And I mean, really, you have to go to Africa to see the peacefulness, how those animals, those majestic animals, move around huge territories. I mean, they're among the strongest species in Africa. But you look at them and you think they're just so peaceful. They're so in peace. And I think it's just so fascinating. Also to learn, yes, they don't need a quota for female leaders. There are. The matriarchs are the leader of the herds. But of course, what we also can learn from animals is how bad the human impact is in Africa. the impact of poaching, the impact of climate change, and the impact of people just killing animals just for fun, to make some money of it. So this is saddening. We have reached a point where every 15 minutes, one elephant dies, shot by I would call them terrorists, but people with automatic guns and night sight, and they just kill whole herds. Every 15 minutes, an elephant dies. But one of the greatest things for me, coming from the political and the communication world, is the power of communication we see in elephants. Elephants, how do you think communication works? I know all of you many of you had classes and experiences. How does communication work? We humans think, well, it's what we say and how the other one responds. And this is, from elephants, I would say the trumpeting, right? To make signs of, don't go further, go this way, blah, blah, blah. But there's just so much more to communication. And they do that, as I had said, through their feet. They can sense. And those senses are so important if you want to be successful in any business, to sense what's important in the situation, to sense what your customer says, to sense what your partner really means, to get those little signals of the eyelash moving, of the when you swallow, when people are nervous, or when they lie. Are you guys watching Netflix? Are you streaming on Netflix? Yeah. Some of you might see Don't Lie to Me on Netflix. You have that here, right? Yes. So they have all those little signs. I really, really recommend that watching, because it increases your own ability to communicate and to detect the little signals that are just so, so important. So, but one of the major things, I always get asked, because I do so much on leadership, what is the major learning? What does a good leader need to be able to do? And I say he needs to be able to adapt to change. And everybody says that. Oh my God, change is so important. The companies I work with, they do change management projects all the time. People can't hear it anymore. And we have a change management project. Animals in the wild, they don't need a change management project. As soon as they are awake, they realize the change of the wind, of the grass, of the prey, of everything. Change is natural. But we as humans, we have made it complicated. Because in the end, if we're honest, we don't like change. We are afraid of it a bit. What will happen to my job, my family, myself? But I say become a change maker. Learn how to use change for yourself, because in the end, we need it to be successful. And we need a different kind of leadership as we had in the past 30 years, because we want a different world, right? A world with less hunger, less sickness, less impact of lobbyists, more trust, more democracy, more freedom, right? So it's mastering the art of transformation that's really important, and you can learn from leopards. They have just broken all the rules you can think of in the animal world. Usually an animal, chases the prey either at nighttime or during the day. Leopards, I don't even know what to give a shit. They don't care. They prey whenever they feel they need food, at night, at day, in Kruger National Parks, in the back thing, how did you call that? Behind the houses in Johannesburg, where the garbage trays are, they go into the human territory if they need food. They would do anything to survive and to adapt to change, just like this. Usually a leopard would not eat birds. Well, this guy here up there, he is so hungry. Now when I made this shot, this little bird, you can't see him because he was moving, well, he did not survive. So the adaptability to change is just such an essential thing for all of us. And this is what I really recommend to all of you. The only problem is, often we make a big negative thing in our head that, oh my God, that's scary. But we have to focus on the positive sides of it, because that brings energy to us, right? And I'm telling you, time is running out. Time is running out. We have to move fast, like this guy here. Speed is essential. Because we are in such a speedy world, this is why it's so important, on the one hand, to rest, on the other hand, to be fast. So finally, what can I tell you from all my Africa experiences? I would say I never thought I could become a ranger as a European woman, not just knowing one bird, but it did happen. So whatever you think in what's in your head is likely to happen, because after 2 weeks in Africa, I thought I could do it. I thought I could do it. It sounded crazy to me, but I thought I could do it. And there are all those people, those parents and teachers and speakers and, that tell you something. I want you to listen to yourself, to what's within you, because often the rules that we have been told apply, they don't apply anymore. They don't, because the world has become so crazy. But within you, with your own intuition, you can solve those riddles by just being courageous. And I want to show you last video as a gift from me, and it's also on YouTube. You can watch it there. And just the last lesson on rangers. What do lionesses love to eat? Warthogs, because they're small, they're not very fast, they're easy. We call the warthogs in South Africa the bush McDonald's. And we would advise, any consultant, any teacher, any parent would not advise a warthog to attack a lion, right? Well, as I said, we're in a crazy world. Watch this. Well, this lioness was too close to the cub of the warthog where her babies were. So she had a good reason to fight and not to believe anybody else except her inner voice. So thank you, and I want you to believe your own inner voice. Don't settle, go wild. Have fun, many questions, and stay strong. Thank you so much for having me. Oh, thank you. Got my water.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
We have time for just a couple of questions. I know students have to start heading off to class, but a few other things that I want to know. We've been talking a lot, and you alluded to it, the impact of social media that keeps us so busy and keeps us so distracted. If a student wants to explore that, would your number one suggestion be turn it off completely, or perhaps dedicate, if somebody really wanted to sort of take that change and start looking inside, where should they start first?
I think I would always advise to start what feels comfortable to you, not like comfortable like comfort zone, but just be aware of your time. You know what I mean? Everybody has 24 hours a day, but in case you want to make the best for you out of those 24 hours, you might want to watch the time that you spend on social media a bit more, and you might think, oh, I'll save those 30 minutes and do nothing. I do the lion thing. I sleep longer. I spend more time with the person that I love. I talk to my kids. I talk to my parents. I'm outside hiking. Because those things, from nature or spend time with your dogs and cats is something that lifts us up. Social media often just distracts you. And also often I've seen people who got bullied and everything, they just go pulled down. So I would advise, look at the time and spend it wisely.
And along those lines with the stillness, if somebody finds that a little bit scary or worrisome, do you have any tactics or any suggestions for, I know you've suggested 30 minutes, and what could people think during that time? Should they think? Should they observe? How to start that?
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, isn't it crazy that we think we can't sit 30 minutes somewhere and that's scary for us and just do nothing? You know, because we feel that we have to do something and we have to think, and you know, I mean, first of all, I feel that's already crazy. But when I came to Africa, you know, there was no, I mean, there was no cell phone, there wasn't even a charging station, nothing. I had, and you know, at nighttime when it turns dark, it's not still because you have the birds and everything, but you are with yourself. And I can tell you from my own experience, as a very hectic and driven person, it was healing to tune out. It was healing just to sit and watch the fire or listen to the night owls and just to be. And I think really, if we look at the power that the world needs to be changed, it has to come from people who are strong and not people who are crazy driven and, you know, like this all the time. And the inner peace and what, you know, the mind, when we train our mind and train our brain to look for peace, to look for mindfulness, that is a big clue. So I also like some questions of you. I know it's complicated with the mic, but, you know, just speak up. I'm sure I can hear you and be there for all of you. So.
And we should also mention that the conversation will continue in the lobby if anybody wants to come and speak with you. And then we'll be on the radio today at 3 p.m. on KSUU Thunder 91.1.
Yes. I love the radio. I've never had that at a university. I guess the Europeans can learn a lot from you. So I will tell them about the Utah radio station. That's cool.
Do you have a favorite memory from your time as a ranger? I know there are so many, but is there a favorite one that you haven't mentioned today that stands out?
Many. But one of my favorites is to understand, it was sort of the acknowledgement of that all the things that I had thought before that would happen to me in Africa or would be there, it was just so different and so much better than I would have ever imagined. That's why I tell my students in Austria and Switzerland and in Germany, I said, just, you know, go do it, because we tend to overthink things. And the more you think, oh my God, I don't have the time, I can't do it, what will my parents say, what will the neighbors say, and blah, blah, blah. And my favorite thought when I think back to Africa is that it's like a place of magic that I, thank goodness, thanks to Caroline, was able to get to again. But everybody has that. We just need to make sure that we go there every now and then, and that we know where it is. I mean, I had completely forgotten. So make sure you know where your place of magic is. If it's music, if it's a certain city, if it's cooking, if it's science, whatever. If it's Africa, you know, go there and make sure you don't overthink it. Just do it. Really, that's my go.
Well,
go.
and that's like your motto, right? I mean, that's like the saying that you have about going wild. Like, don't settle, go wild. I mean, indeed, that's similar to that. One of the questions that I thought was interesting in the class visits yesterday was about building teams, and I know that you mentioned teamwork today, and you've talked about teamwork, and you've been in a position to help teams, to choose teams. Can you talk a little bit about what you look for, you know, in teams and in good team members?
That was maybe a bit shocking yesterday in one of the classes. I said, you know, I didn't read resumes when I still had my business, or in all of my businesses. I mean, and then I corrected it because I do read them, but after I have spoken to the person. And what did I mean by that is that I really want to focus on the person, on the values that are displayed, on the way how he or she communicates. And of course, I want to have diverse teams, but I do think that the whole diversity issue is too short-sighted. Many people think that diversity is gender, race, and religion. And this is true. And of course, I want, you know, diverse teams from that point of view, but I also want diversity in approaches, diverse thinking in approaches to problems. in approaches to communication. You know, there are as we said, there are the visual people and the auditive people. I want risk-averse people. It's often women in my team, but also the gung-ho guys that love risk, you know. So, because in all that, team quality is the result of this is excellence for the client. So I looked for the quality of the person and the real talent, the crystal of the talent. And if you look at lions, it's very interesting. First of all, lions don't have business cards, which everybody knows. But the interesting thing with humans is we have business cards and we think, okay, because I'm the sales manager, let's just say, I need to be the person, you know, approaching that client, right? Well, when a lion pride sees a zebra, for example, it's not that the oldest lioness approaches the zebra or attacks. They watch the zebra on, you know, how strong the muscles at the neck are, how high it comes up. So let's just say it's a big grown zebra. Then a different lioness would drive the attack, a lioness that can jump higher. You see what I mean? So we, the business people with the sales card, we just send that one person. I forget org charts, forget business cards. Send the person best, you know, suited to solve that problem, to get that specific zebra. And that's what I want in my teams, you know, because the zebras out there, you know, the clients, when I still used to be in that business, are just so different. You know, some are slow, some are fast, and then there are the warthogs that attack us and all of this crazy stuff. So I want a diversity of talents, and that's what I look for. And I look for by asking powerful questions. I ask many, many questions when I speak to people. They think like, oh my God, you know, I've never been asked so much questions, somebody said to me in an interview.
Is it a list or is it changed for the situation? Do you have certain questions that you always ask? How do you go about that?
I follow my intuition mainly, but of course there are, and I've learned that in Africa, or it got reinforced in Africa. But of course I have certain questions that I do ask, you know, what did you love about your last job most? What is your experience with this and that? Of course I ask those questions, but what's even more important is I watch for the reaction, those minimal signs we talked about, because I try to be present with all my senses. And you can. I mean, when I came back from Africa, I redid our whole office. I mean, like, really. We installed, we had, it was on 2 levels in Berlin, behind the Reichstag, which is where the government works. And, you know, we just had, tables and PCs and, you know, everywhere. And the first thing I did when I came back, I installed a place where there are games. Like football, you know, kicker. Do you have kicker here?
Like table
football. Mm-hmm. Because I've learned in Africa how important it is for grown-ups to play with one another. Because in those games, you forget hierarchy, you just have fun, and you want to win, of course. So at those games, the people were able to approach me as the boss just so much more personal and authentic than, you know, have my secretary schedule a meeting for you for 15 minutes or a phone call. And there was so much joy in my office, and people just loved it. So after a couple of weeks, they brought their partners and their friends and, you know, all those crazy things. For the outside world, it seemed crazy. For us, we loved it. It was our favorite day. It was the Thursday of every week. And I think, you know, as I said, breaking the rules is just so, so important, because mediocrity is what we're in a world in a bad shape. If we look at nature, if we look at politics, if we look wherever, there are things we just can't accept anymore. The pollution of the air, of the ocean, you know, wherever, of food, everything. But where do you get the change? By changing the way how we work, by changing the way how we think, by daring to be different. And I think this is what students should learn everywhere. So I go everywhere and try to say that, you know, dare to be you and be different. Say no. Say, we don't want that anymore. You can do it. I know you can. I wish I would have done it 30 years ago.
Well, I'd like to say thank you so much for the lessons today. And as she mentioned, Kate Kerstin, KP, will be around to answer if you have any one-on-one questions you would like to find out from her, please feel free to come up and talk. But thank you so much for your time and for all of your generosity in your time and energy here. It's been such a pleasure, and much luck to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you.